Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Joey Evans.
I'm Wendy Yee.
I'm Chris Yee.
And today we're taking a look at a game from Brazil, O Bom Do Videogame, or as it's known in English, Video Game Champion, or it might be.
Fred Savage.
I feel like we need like intro music for that. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun.
The Wizard.
I'm working on getting a MIDI version of the Dice Tower theme done.
Oh, that'd be cute.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yes. So here's the thing. This game is thematically based on the 80s, maybe more like 90s. 90s of video gaming. When you were a
NES
kid,
level.
and you did have a lot of money, so you're begging off your parents and or going to the video game rental store where you would rent games and not delete the save games of other people because that's a jerky thing to do, but sometimes you had to because they filled all the slots.
Would you continue their games, though?
Well, I'd want to see what they were doing.
I would have to. It's only right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm curious. You're like on level 74. I don't know if I'll have time to finish the game.
I agree. Final Fantasy, yeah. I'd do it.
Man.
Now, if that interests you at all, that theming, that's good because this game is full of theme. Let's show you how it plays. This is the layout for a 4-player game. There are alternate sides of these for a 2-player game. There's a slightly different layout for a 3 or a 5-player game. But you're going to have a bunch of these tiles. Players are going to start with 2 of them in front of them. And one thing I want to be clear on is players have a limit of 8 tiles in front of them. And that's going to matter because as the game goes by, you're going to get IOU tiles. These are from your parents. And these, if you can only have 8 of these tiles in front of you, these are going to take the spots of some of those tiles. And if you have like 6 IOUs, you can only have 2 tiles. That's a problem. So the game takes place over 5 rounds, and in each round, players are going to get 3 actions. They're going to take a tile from the middle here, and that tile is not immediately replaced, and they'll keep taking tiles. There will be enough tiles left over equaling the number of players. When you take a tile, you'll put that tile in front of you. Make sure you don't go over 8. Then you take the action of either the row or the column of the tile that you took. So what are these actions? Well, over here, you are going to Grandma's house. This is great. You get $1 from her, and she gets rid of one of the IOU tiles because your parents are glad to be rid of you for a while. On this one, you can take any tile from in front of you and switch it with another tile. You also will put one of your markers up on the score track, the turn track, to show that you're good to go first, because going first is a big deal in this game. If you go here, you can pay $1 to get a strategy magazine, which we'll talk about later. Here you draw 2 more of these tiles from the bag. Here you go to the video game rental store. Here you beg your parents to buy you a new video game, but you're going to get 3 IOU tokens and a new video game. Here you do your homework, do your chores, get rid of 2 IOUs, and here you beg your parents for money. You get $2, but you take an IOU token. So you have to make do with what you do. Let's take a look, though, at the video games themselves. There are lots of video games. In fact, every player owns this video game, Meow. This is the one that comes with the system that you'll have in front of you. Other than that, you're going to want to play video games, but you can only play video games that you have access to. So one of the ways is going to the store. So there will always be 3 video games in the store, and you can see there's all sorts of video games. There'll be 3 video games. Each of those games will have a gem on top of them that comes with a video game when you buy it. There will also be games out here in the video game store. It's supposed to be out in the middle. There's 7 that will start the game, but after that, 2 more will be turned up face up each round. Some games will have gems on them. Those mean those games are new games. When you take the video game rental action, which you can pick, but also every player can do right before the end of a round, and they'll do it in turn order, placing little markers that they have, they look like workers, on games to show you've rented it and nobody else can rent it at that point. But you're going to be placing those markers on to play them, and more will show up, but it costs $2 to rent new games, only $1 to rent the older games. Whenever you rent a game, own a game, whatever it is, you have the chance to play these games. When you play a game, you have to play the tiles it shows at the bottom to beat the game. So for example, this one needs 4 of the same. This one needs 3 of the same color. This needs 3 of the same and 2 of the same. This needs a sequential run, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3. A sequential run, all of the same. So if you have the tiles, you can do that. So if I had, for example, 3 8s and 2 2s, I could discard them, and now I've beaten this game. Whenever you beat a game, you're going to place a win token on that game. You don't need to play it again, and at the end of the game, you'll get points equal to the value of that game. You can also just play video games. When you play a video game, you only need to discard the first 2 tiles. So this one, for example, needs 3 of the same. I could just discard 2 of the same. When that happens, I'm going to put a played button on that to show that I played it. Now, why would I play a game over beating it? Well, it makes it easier to beat later on. Later on, I need 3 tiles for this. If I only have 2, I have 2 purple tiles. And this, since I played it, I know more about it, counts as the 3rd tile. Secondly, the first time you play a game, or if you beat it on first play, it doesn't matter, you get to draw a tile. Next to the board, there will be 4 tiles that are constantly replaced, and you can take one of those. So if I play 2 tiles, I also get 1 back, and I played the game. And there are other benefits to playing games. The first person to play a new game will take the gem that's on top of it. When you're trying to play or beat a video game, you can also spend a strategy magazine as one of the tiles that you need if it matches the type. So I could spend this one. I take the gem off to show that I've done that. The first time you play a game, you will also take the gem off to show that you've played that game. Gems are kind of ways to learn cheat codes. So you have each person has a password in front of you, and when you take gems, you place them on a matching color or a wild symbol, and when you completely fill a row or column, you'll get the rewards, which are many times points at the end of the game. Another way to get points is to complete these cards that are next to the table, these objective cards. The first person to do them will take them. So these are put out randomly, a certain number based on the number of players. So like the first person to play 3 RPGs gets this card. The first person to play 3 of these games gets this card, which is worth 8 points, 1 of each type. The first person to get 5 gems. The first person to beat 4 video games. And if you have magazines that all have the same type of thing that they are teaching about, like role-playing or fighting or whatever it might be. After 5 rounds, the game ends, and then you're going to score points based on this somewhat confusing score guide. Playing video games can get you points. So if you play 0 to 5 games, you get no points, but every game you play after that is worth 2. And whoever plays the most gets 8 points. Whoever has the most gems gets 8 points. You get points for your password sheets, you get points for the cards that you've taken, and then you get points, and this is a lot of points, for every game that you've beaten. This easy game is only worth 2 points, but this much harder game here is worth 9 points. Whoever has the most points is the winner of the game. Okay, the first thing I want to say about the theming is I think this is one of the most strongly themed games that I've played in years.
It has such a good mechanical tie-in. I love it.
Right, the idea that you can own the game or you can just rent it, and then the renting it comes with its own little problems, but then there's the cost. I love that. This is just for me. I love that thematically in the game you're a kid, you cannot afford to buy the video game yourself.
Ever.
Yeah.
Right. I do think this one, though, when you describe how to play the game, you have to incorporate the theme into your instructions. Because I've seen it done 2 ways. I've seen it done one with you when you do embrace that theme, and the other one where you just explain mechanics.
Who's doing that?
Somebody at East, and they were explaining. I had to step in and say, no, here's why you're doing it. You're going to visit grandma. You're going to do chores. And because the first people did not like it because it's just so mechanical. But you explain that you're a kid and you're going through this. The theme is there on pretty much every different action.
I love that you can go in debt to your parents.
That's so good.
That you're
the
like,
only way to get the game.
Please.
You have to. And then one of the objectives is you have to be like fully in debt. You have to like 7 of those.
That seems so hard.
Oh, I saw a guy go for that. I'm like, man, buddy, you're going to be grounded for the rest of your life.
I don't know. That
But
kid's
he's like
got his
outside
parents
like,
wrapped around his
yes. My parents do whatever I want, fools.
You're grounded, but I own 5 video games. Do
then-
you?
upset.
Oh, and he ended up getting it, but then at the end he was just doing so many chores to get rid of those so he can get back to it. Yeah, there's a lot
Oh,
to
man.
unpack.
And I applaud the artwork because it definitely looks like
Real games.
real
Oh, yeah.
games that were trying to copy Nintendo and Atari. I'm sorry, Atari. But Nintendo and Super Nintendo and
Sega
PlayStation.
Right.
Yeah.
I need to forward in time.
But not full parody games. Like, these are games that look unique enough that I would play it. You know?
Yeah,
they
they
look
have
really good.
They have a touch of humor to them, but
Right.
they also seem like they could be real games. And I like
Yes.
that touch. Instead of like Bomber Dude 64 on like every single card, I enjoy the little shout out. All that being said, I like how much that really ties in with the mechanical aspects of the game.
I do too.
I think that the game is mechanically very strong and sound as well. It's that little bit of when you take the tile and then you can activate one of the 2 things and you have that tough choice.
Oh, I really like that's one of my favorite mechanisms.
Yeah, so
That
good.
is.
Because you're making multiple choices. What tile do I want? And then what action do I... I think you're almost always picking the action first, but sometimes you need that perfect set to beat a video game.
Yeah, I agree.
One quick note about the theme. I do think, because the theme is super strong, I wonder that people in their 20s and younger
Right.
will not be as attracted to it.
Kids these days.
Well, no, but I mean, the idea, now you just download games. Now, I mean, you go to GameStop, and the idea of renting video games is a past thing.
Do kids finish games too these days? I mean, I assume like the
Yes,
bigger
my kids beat 'em, like,
RPG
10 times
ones.
over.
Oh, okay. Because I think of like app games, like the free app games, you never finish.
Well, that's
You
true.
know.
Well, you
There
can't.
are no
There's just
microtransactions
endless.
in this, which is pretty nice.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
Speaking of transactions, though, this game has a pretty tight economy. And the first time we played, I remember thinking, and we talked about it, I thought it might be too tight, but I played it a lot, and I don't think it's too tight. I think you just need to realize you don't got a lot of money, and that's how kids are.
Yeah, that's so how
Thematic.
kids are. Yeah.
You know, I would be curious to sit down with the designers of this game and just see which one of these games were inspired by what games. Like, I'm just very curious because some are very difficult to beat. You have to have a lot of stuff in front of you, means you have to invest a lot of time and energy into beating these games, whereas other ones are really simple. Like the free one that everybody gets at the beginning of the game. It makes me
Meow.
think of Mario. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Everyone gets the free game that comes with the NES.
Yep.
And so I'm just curious, like what the tie-in is.
And then it's interesting too. It took me a couple of plays to realize, I'm like, why would you play a game? Well, there are certain achievements you get for just playing as many games as you can. At the end, if you played this many games, you get this amount of points. So there's a lot of variety as far as that goes.
And I love that playing the game, when you put out that like half completed token,
Right.
is a mechanical step towards then being able to beat that game later. Maybe, right? Because beating it is, good for points, guaranteed points in there. But like you said, maybe you're just going for a set collection, having played a lot of different
Yes.
games. Everything feels worth pursuing, and I really like that balance.
And on a theme thing, where you go in and you're like, I've played this game. I also bought the Nintendo Power, or whatever they call it there, the magazine. So I'm going to go in, I know this game, and you're only spending 2 cards to beat a game worth like 9. You're like, yeah, I prepared for this. It just feels good.
And the cheat codes, the
Yes.
blocks.
Yeah.
I agree. I wondered when I first played that the beating the video games was the best way to go.
Right.
But
Yep.
if you play a ton, and I've tried it, if you play a ton of games and you don't even beat them, you just play them.
Right.
You're the kid. I haven't beat anything, but I know about all the games. That's a very viable strategy.
And it does depend on what the objectives that come out each game, right? Because
But
those
there's always
change.
there's always a few of the play 3 of the same type. So those will always be out there. And playing the most gets you 8 points. And then if you play more than 5, everyone after that's 2 points. You play 10 games, which is possible. You got 10 points, 18 points, plus you had a couple of objectives. You could crush people doing that.
Yeah, I agree. And then also, there's so many little things like as far as the blocking. If someone rents a game that you were preparing for, and you go to the store and it's not there, man, it just irritates you so much. You're like, dude, you've got it all weekend? It just feels so good.
Or you can wait till the weekend. You can wait till the end of the round, but someone might have rented it during the week.
And then you do keep those tiles because they're taking up room. Well, you only have 8, I think, or something. So you're taking up room. I was like, do I wait till I get that game back? 'Cause I've been waiting for that. So I really like that.
I think the one mechanical part that might be a hang-up for some people, and I'm still kind of deciding, I think I really like it, but it's also a little bit of a hang-up for me, is collecting those gems for the new hotness games and then putting it onto your little board there. That, to me, I like it. It feels like something almost out of like a Luciani, Jiggly game,
Yes.
right? It feels like something out of like Newton or something where you're like, oh, fill this in, and then you get these little bonuses. It almost does feel like one extra step than I want there to be in the game. Like, oh, okay, oh, no, I've been ignoring that. Oops, should I keep doing that? But I think it also adds to the replayability where there's more stuff to focus on, and then at some point you say, like, I can't do everything, I'll let that part go. Ooh, I hope that score doesn't bite me later, but I'm getting more points from playing and completing more games. So I think it's overall a net positive, but it is, it feels more mechanical than the rest of the game.
But the gems allow you to know if a game is new or not, if you've played it or not. and
Right.
if you use a magazine or not. So there's another functional use for those.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I also like how at the beginning I was going for points on those. I don't think the points are as worth it, but getting those to do chores to get rid of some of those,
Yeah,
that's where I started
sure.
embracing that.
I think also that allows Tom's strategy of just playing every little game possible. If he's able to get to all these games first,
Yeah.
then it just adds to that score engine.
Not my strategy. It's just I tried it
It's
in that
Tom's
game.
strategy.
Play a lot
You
of
play
games.
So
against
good.
him, you have to beat that strategy.
Yeah.
All right, what would you rate it?
I'd rate it a 7.5. I love the thematic tie-in to the mechanisms. It's not just art on the game. And so I really appreciate that. I do like the column and the row collecting, those kind of things. I think it's a good, solid game. So it's a 7.5 for me.
For me, I'd give it an 8. It's really good. I think that player count also can affect a little bit, affects a little bit of the setup and everything. But sometimes you are waiting a little bit for your turns. But overall, I do find it very fun. I mean, those small little slight negatives. Other than that, I have obviously so much good to say about it. I love the theming. I love just the satisfaction of taking the perfect tile that lines up with this action that I want, that then lets me finish this game with these bonuses that I set up with earlier, and I've completed this and get an objective. I like that, cascading benefits one after the other. So yeah, an 8.
We'll come in higher. I actually really enjoy the theme. I'm giving it a 9. Just because I like it that much, because I embrace games like Boss Monster, all the stuff that has video games, but a lot of those games fall flat. This one, it's the idea of you are actually being the kid. And mechanically, I think the game really works, which is a rarity when you jump into genres and themes like this for me. I think this is really fun, and the different little, and it's also, if you play with the right people, it's so much fun to be able to go to the store. Do you buy the game? Do you do the chores? Do you owe your parents? There's so much unpack, and there's so many different ways to get to the end. I haven't won this game yet, by the way. I played a lot, but I keep trying different things, but I like this game a lot.
That doesn't affect any game, really.
It really doesn't.
I'm also at a 9. I think it's a really solid game, and the theme, it works. I'm very much able to ignore games that have no theme. You mentioned Luciani. Those games never, I don't know what the theme is, whatever. But they're really strong games. That's great. Yeah, I can deal with that. And there are also games that you mentioned, Boss Monster, have a really strong theme, and you're like, the game is terrible.
Right.
This is that great combo. And I've taught this a dozen times probably, and I get such a joy out of teaching this because everyone nods their heads because they remember doing this stuff. And it also makes teaching the game easier because, oh yeah, well that's going to grandma's house. Obviously, she gives you some money and your parents are happy. You don't understand why your parents are happy until now. You're like, oh, that makes sense.
I get it.
God, it made me sad. It's like I should have went there more. I know, like yeah.
So, I know we're going to get asked this. Where can you get this? Right now, it's currently only in Brazil, but I feel incredibly confident it will show up from an American publisher. So, hang on, you'll see it then. But that is O Bom Do Videogame or Video Game Champion. I'm Tom Vassell.
I'm Joey Evans.
I'm Wendy Yee.
I'm Chris Yee.
Boom.